Here we go. Another 10 out of 10. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God is one. Amen. Christ is risen. And it's a beautiful mixed sort of day here in the monastery. The sunshine pouring in through the window at the moment. I can see quite a long way. There's quite a lot of cloud everywhere. And we're offered a mixture of sunshine and showers, and maybe the odd rumble of thunder as well. Christ is risen. Christ is risen, Anthony, and Malengith, and Maria, and Natalia. God bless you. And Helia, all the way from Pembrokeshire. Not all that far away, really, but great. I love Pembrokeshire. I've only been there once, and it was the most wonderful holiday. A friend of mine who's now died. I remember looking down over the cliffs into the sea, and the sea was so beautiful and clear. And other places, people were going surfing. And in this place, there was a seal that was busy picking crabs and crunching them up. Really lovely. Blue skies over in Worcestershire. Very nice. Okay. You might be able to hear the odd little bubble going on in the background. And those bubbles are from wine that is busy being made. So if I look around, I'll be able to see what's happening over there. I've got a jar full of, it's not wine, a jar full of seeds that are sprouting. They're mung beans. And then next to there, we've got, I've got a big tub with about, 8 litres of blackberry wine beginning to ferment. The reason for that is that one of our freezers went wrong and defrosted. So everything there has had to be changed into something and dealt with in some way. And you've got so much blackberry jam that we don't really know what to do with it. We're eating it, obviously, but there's loads and loads of it. So I'm making some into blackberry wine. The last time I did that, it was spectacularly successful. The only thing is that while I was away in Lincoln, everybody seems to have drunk it. So I have to hide some of it away. I've got the kombucha, and I've also got some rosé, some Chardonnay, and 2 big things of nettle wine that are bubbling away like nobody's business at the moment. I think it's going to be very, very strong. I tried some yesterday, and as much as I could do to get up yesterday afternoon as a result. Just a little tiny little cup, little finjan, like one of these. I just dipped it in, tried it to see if it's going to taste okay. It's going to be delicious. But it was very, very strong. I think it's going to be the sort of thing you have in very small amounts. Yes, Maria. And I also put some ginger into it and something else. Blackberry infused puddings and bakes, we've got all of that. We're doing all of those things. And we've got lots of rhubarb in the garden as well that needs to be eaten as well. Root of nettle. Now, Darcy, that sounds like a really interesting idea. We've got more nettles here than you can shake a stick at. Some of them are polluted because the sewage went wrong last autumn, but we've got heaps of other nettles, and we use them as one of our crops. So you can make them into soups and eat them like spinach, which are very good for you. They're full of iron and full of protein. In fact, one of the things about them is they grow really well where sheep have been, because they, quite right, Maria, the sheep urinate on the patch, and the nettles grow in a high nitrogen area, which then makes proteins, and it's those proteins are good for us. It also makes good fertilizer as well. But Darcy, if you let me know how to make, send me a link about how to make nettle root wine, that would be really interesting. See what we can do. God bless you, Sissy. Beautiful day. Increasing traffic noise, Alan. Yes. We don't really get any here, but I think people are beginning to get impatient. Christ is risen, Patrick. Thank you for your comments the last couple of 3 days. Seeing Malengith there, I'm going to put another link underneath here later on to the course that she's doing for people interested in orthodoxy. It's very cleverly done, with little patches all over the place doing different things and video clips and that sort of stuff. Okay, today we're going to have a look at Mark chapter 1, and we might even do several verses. What's going to happen next? Good morning, Vicky. Christ is risen indeed. Worst hangover of your life, nettle wine. Well, I came close. Just trying that little bit in a little finjan is a difficult thing. God bless you, Declan. Good morning. Now, story so far, the Lord has gone into the synagogue and he has taught. And people have been, their brains have been mangled by this. They've been amazed by what he said. And not just what he said, but how he said it. He's talking with his own authority. He's not talking to somebody else's, but his own authority. And that's really what has astonished them. And then something else happens. Now, I gave a clue away yesterday about this, and that is that we have God in there in his synagogue teaching about himself, telling people, well, you want to know what God is like? This is what it's like. It's like me, not me, like the Lord. And that's why it is that they're so astonished. You know, it's not often that God actually turns up in person in church. He does, I know. So before you give me lots of comments, I know that he does really. But in this particular way, in the flesh, in a Capernaum, they weren't really expecting it. Not a huge city, not someone like Rome, where it might be worth going to, but Capernaum, 1,500 people, something like that. Quite a small thing. And inside the synagogue, which is interesting that he came to the synagogue, there's a man with an unclean spirit, an evil demon is lurking inside him. And here we have the first time that anybody speaks, in Mark anyway, to the Lord. And it's very interesting what he says. He says this: "Now there's a man in the synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, 'Let us alone. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God.'" Now, in English, that sounds rather tame. Good morning, Claire. God bless you. I guess you've got plenty to do this morning. It's a great household, that one, and poor Claire has to put up with Alan, turning her kitchen into a sort of workshop where there's candles and books and printing and all sorts of other things going on. And she's trying to cook for quite a big family, and they're all running around, and and then somebody like me turns up hoping for cake. I don't know. How does she cope? She's very good at it. That's how she copes. Anyway, let us alone. Now, actually, it doesn't say that in Greek. It's more, what with me and you. In other words, we're living in, the Africans in Zambia had this wonderful way. They said, we are walking in parallel. It meant you never actually met. You walked in parallel and you never came to each other. We are walking in parallel, and this is where it is here as well. They are inhabiting two different realms. And here we have in the synagogue the evil spirit and the Lord in the same place. Then in English, it carries on, "Did you come to destroy us?" But in Greek, it doesn't necessarily say that, because "you came to destroy us" and "did you come to destroy us" is much the same. Exactly right, Maria. Yes. What to you and to me, or to us. It can also, depending on whereabouts you put the question mark or the other punctuation marks, it means something different. Now, the punctuation marks are put in quite late. So they're not in the original because nobody wrote punctuation marks then. You more or less, a bit like reading Arabic now, you had to know what it meant before you knew what it meant. But the people who were reading this story had already read it. They knew the story. They knew what happened. So it can also be read, and personally I prefer this reading, not "have you come to destroy us," but "you have come to destroy us." Very useful indeed, yeah. And actually, speaking about, sorry, I'm looking at the side here. Maria Georgiou says it's helpful having a Greek Bible to compare with. Quite right. And it's worth having an interlinear, or actually, you don't even need to do that. There's something called Bible Gateway, and you can get onto lots of different translations there. And you can also, on the side of it, there are commentaries by different people. That's very, very helpful. And that I think is helpful. You can read it in a much more immediate way then. And sometimes in different languages, it's translated in a different sort of way. So anyway, there we go. That's slightly an aside. What have you to do with you? What have you and I to do with each other? You have come here to destroy us. Now, there's also the other interesting thing is here. Jesus of Nazareth, the demon calls him, and then he says, Holy One of God. And there's this clash, this sudden clash here. Jesus of Nazareth was capable with, the Holy One of God is not capable with. And at this point, really early on in the Gospel, verse 23, 24 of chapter 1, you start getting this clash between the two realms. From now on, in the whole of the Gospel, you are left with a choice. Are you going to be on the demon's side or on the Lord's side? Are you going to want him to go away? Say, let us alone. What are you to do with us? What a terrible prayer that is. And in some parts you'll find in the Gospel, the prayer to God, and Jesus is God. So whenever you talk to Jesus, you're talking to God and therefore you're praying. The prayer is, leave us, go away. A shocking thought. And many people actually feel that, oh God, just leave me alone. Leave me to myself. And they've chosen the side of the demons. Then you come to this, I know who you are, the Holy One of God. So you've got the Holy One and you've got the demon. The unclean and the clean. And from now on, it is a choice. Which side are you going to be on? And you see that some people go one way, other people go the other way. Those who follow Christ, those who follow the demons. And this clash ends up on the cross. And of course we know that's the worst that the demons can do to the Lord, acting with their human agents. Worse that Satan can do. And Christos anesti. Christos a enviat. Christos viscresi. Christ is risen. The demons are beaten down. But here, the demon realizes what's going to happen. You have come to destroy us, he says. And then it carries on. Maybe I want to end there. Let's end there. Let's end there. That's enough. Not tomorrow. I'm not here tomorrow. I am, but I'm not going to be on this tomorrow. On Monday, we'll have a look at the next couple of verses. So they're really interesting what the Lord says next. And again, it's not often we get the Lord speaking so far. He has called the apostles, now he speaks directly. And it'd be very interesting to compare this with a film of an exorcism, because they're quite different. Quite different. But I'm not going to steal my own thunder, leave that for later. Speaking of thunder, we had a vigil last night, because today is the feast day of St. John the Evangelist. So we had a night vigil. So that was all the services from the 9th hour through to the post-communion prayers. It was wonderful to be able to spend a bit of time within the chapel and let things... And during the reading of the gospel, when... and also, not just there, but also during the services. Of course, John is called the Sons of Thunder, and it makes use of this to have makes use of this idea of sons of thunder to talk about the thunder of the gospel traversing throughout the whole world. And just as that is being said, there's a mighty thunderclap. It was really very dramatic and wonderful. And there we are. What nonsense. I'm laughing not because of the thunderclap, though that was rather amazing, but what Maria has said here. Maria Helena had a dream last night, had an exam on Mark's Gospel. Yes, well, then Declan says, did you pass? We'll know that, Declan, when we see whether or not she has got into heaven. Through the prayers of Holy Fathers. Christ is risen. I have had the most wonderful news today. One of my parishioners in Lincoln, wonderful lady, has just been given the all clear by her surgeon. And this is, I was in tears of joy, and I'm still in absolute ecstasy of joy to hear this wonderful news. Right, God bless you. Pray for each other. It's miraculous, by the way, this thing that's happened. It's just fantastic. Have a very lovely day. Monday, we'll be back 10 to 10. 10 at 10.